On this episode of the Investment Spotlight series, my partner Chris Versace and I interviewed Tony Cataldo, who is the chairman, president, and founder of GT Biopharma. Chris, what was your biggest takeaway from this interview?
Well, I think, Jay, like any of these biopharma companies, you really have to dig in and understand what it is they're attacking, what the proprietary or differentiating solution is that they're bringing to market, and then really, ask the tough question: where are you in the FDA trials? And more importantly, what's your balance sheet? Because a lot of these companies, particularly these early stage ones, as you know, are pre-revenue, and they might have some great technology, but if they don't have the runway to make it to market, they're going to have a lot of problems. So I thought it was a great conversation with Tony, and he really kind of pulled together the learnings from his prior company and why the technology that GT Biopharma is using is so different. And he also explained how they cleaned up their balance sheet, which again, I think is really important for investors, particularly prospective investors for, again, shares of GT Biopharma. The one thing, like any of these, companies, the question is, where are you in the trials? And I think Tony gets into this. They have cleared phase one, or in the process of clearing phase one. They're seeing some data that should really, grease the skids, as it were, for phase two. And he talks about some of these things that investors, again, existing or prospective, are going to want to listen to.
Yeah, Chris, I really like the way Tony laid out his framework in the beginning for how he looks at these types of companies. Number one, the data. Number two, what IP and the importance of spending money on the great patent attorneys out there, right. Making the FDA happy, boots on the ground management experience, and how vital that is to these types of companies. And then, of course, capital, which is important to all of these startups.
It always is. It always is.
Well, my apologies to Tony. I mispronounced his name at the beginning of the interview, but that's what happens during these interview series.
Jay Coulter and Chris Versace do not own any interest in the companies that they interview at the time of the recording or 30 days after the initial release of the show.
Today, we are speaking with GT Biopharma Chairman, CEO, and President Tony Cataldo. GT Biopharma trades on the NASDAQ under the symbol GTPB. Tony, thanks for joining us today. My partner, Chris, is a former Wall Street analyst, and these interviews that he does are fantastic informational resources for financial advisors and investors, and he's going to drive most of this conversation. But I'd like to start at a high level without any industry jargon. Why should financial advisors put GT Biopharma on their radar?
Well, I mean, the obvious answer is they want to make money, don't they? But beyond that, of course, look, here's what I tell folks. It's not my first rodeo. Previous to this, I created a company called Iovance Biotherapeutics. I was that guy that went from idiot to genius overnight. And so we went from a bulletin board company to a NASDAQ company, which we just transitioned a month ago at GT, did the same thing. And then it ended up at a $7 billion market cap. That being said, that was for cell therapy. I could go into more details if you want. At the end of the day, that doesn't matter, okay? It's like you were in the Super Bowl 8 years ago. It's what are you doing now? And so here's what I tell folks. I think CEOs do way too much talking, and you really shouldn't listen to us because we're programmed. This is our company. We're programmed to tell you it's the best thing since sliced bread and the competition sucks. The truth is, in biotech, the only thing that you should really listen to, the thing that has to speak louder than the CEO, is data. Human data. And I built Iovance, I built GT Biopharma the same way I built Iovance. One is I focus on 5 things. Data, because without human data, it's meaningless. Number 2 is you have to protect your asset, and I'll get into that momentarily, what the trike is. And that's through IP, your patents. You don't go to your lowest bid attorney for your patent work, you spend the money. And we spend $1,000 an hour with Dr. Lisa Hale out of DLA Piper, one of the country's best biotech attorneys, because you got to protect it through your IP portfolio. Number 3, the only thing that matters, and the only customer that really matters is the FDA. If you can't make that customer happy, doesn't matter how great your data is and how strong your patent portfolio is, you're going nowhere. Number 4, you have to have boots on the ground management experience. There's a lot of nuance to building a biotech company. I think I've got like 3,000 years of experience now. And then number five, it's always capital. If you can't afford to matriculate these assets through commercialization, you also are going nowhere. So those are building blocks. And so a financial advisor has to understand that, you know, the balance sheet, the data, those are the things you pay attention to, because we, like I said, as a CEO, we're programmed to tell you everything's great. But the data is the thing that confirms that everything's great, or it's terrible.
Well, Tony, I'm glad you said that, because that we like to kind of take what, you know, CEOs have to say and kind of break it apart a little bit, get to the meat, and help the audience digest what's going on. And along the way, we try to pull out certain key nuggets that they can focus in on. And I appreciate you setting the stage for that, because you already started to lay out a couple things that we were going to hit on. I guess just sticking with your prior experience to kick it off. If you could go back in time and whisper in, you know, your younger ear, this upcoming CEO, what advice would you give him now, and how do you plan to implement that here at GT Biopharma?
Well, you know, I actually, my entire career has been kind of lucky. You know, I'd like to think I'm that intelligent and talented, but I think luck has a lot to do with it. Timing is everything.
I could not agree more. And you could tell that Jay believes the same.
Yeah. So, you know, it really is. I wouldn't do anything different. For some reason, everything that I did seemed to work out in spite of myself. So I don't think I'd do anything different. I have a former military background, and I applied a lot of that into the way I live my life and the way I run my business. And that is, you know, because look, I've heard many excuses for failure. I just never heard one excuse for success. So, you know,
I like that.
I do too. I do too. All right, so let's jump right into it. So you guys are focused on innovative therapies for cancer, obviously, but your key building block, this technology, is the trike. So in a very simplistic way, what is the trike, and how's it different from what's out there today?
Yeah, what's happened is there's been a metamorphosis of immuno-oncology assets that, you know, and it started really, I came to the trike really because of Iovance. When I started Iovance, we were the first in 2011, and then we were called Genesis, and it became Iovance. We were a bulletin board company, and I knew that cell therapy was really going to resonate, and was lucky enough to license two significant platform assets from the National Cancer Institute, Dr. Steven Rosenberg, who's one of the top oncology people on the planet. There was a lot of competition for it. I was just a bulletin board, and you had major competition in there, like, you know, Pfizer, Celgene, billion-dollar big pharma companies trying to get these assets, and I walked away with it and confused the hell out of everybody.
Well, how did you do it?
Well, because I knew cell therapy was really going to do well, but I knew that I couldn't outmoney big pharma. They got billions of dollars and
Right,
thousands
right.
of employees, and I was a little public bulletin board company. But what happens when the big pharma comes in there to licensing, and I like um, platform assets, and I liken them to like sports franchise athletes, like LeBron James, since I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I always pick
Right.
Tom Brady or Serena Williams. Those type of franchise assets only come around once every 10 to 15 years. And platform biotech assets are about the same. They're rare. Every 10 to 15 years they come around. And this was definitely that. So is the trike, by the way. And so what happens when the big guys come in there, they acquire these assets, they license it from the NIH or the university or whatever. And they feel that the inventors of these assets, like Dr. Rosenberg or Dr. Jeff Miller with the trike, this is their life's work. They spend 20, 30 years getting to where they're at, with many millions of dollars of NIH grants and so on and so forth. And when Big Pharma comes in, they kick them to the curbside. They really don't involve them anymore because they feel they have plenty of money and plenty of resources to do it. They want to do it all on themselves. I think that's wrong for two reasons. It would also turned out to be an advantage for me, by the way. And one of the reasons is it's their life's work. The other is that there's a lot of nuance to biotechnology engineering in the form of biotech assets. And no matter how good they are and how well you've done in developing them to put them into a clinical trial, you always hit a bump in the road. And when you hit a bump in the road on something that sophisticated, to not have the principal architect available, because it's not always about throwing money at it or reverse engineering it.
Right.
They know exactly where to go and exactly what to do to fix it. And time is money on everything.
So Tony, how do you, I'm speculating here, but it sounds to me like you incentivize these folks to come with you as part of the company, whether it's royalties, whether it's stock equity ownership, something like that. So, to help them make the decision against simply getting a quote job with big pharma.
Well, that's it. That was my advantage, is that I could, because a small public company, I could give them equity.
Mm-hmm.
And also I told them, this is what really got me these assets, is that, look, I told them, you need to stay with this. I want you to stay on board. And they want to. It's their life's work. They want to see it to the end. And they end up with an equity position in the company, and that serves them very well, because if it works, which it did in Iovance, and it's now working with the trike at GT, it's a really meaningful equity. Founding equity is important.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I like it from a Wall Street perspective. It really helps align interests rather well, right?
Definitely.
So okay. Okay, so you've been able to pull this scientific team with you, just like you did previously, but let's start to dig into the technology. How is it different, and what are the benefits compared to some other competing technologies or solutions that are out there?
Okay, so what the trike is, it's a tri-specific NK cell engager. I give a lot of speeches now that being that guy that went from idiot to genius overnight, right? Asked to speak a lot. And what I tell folks is, look, it's in the audience that we speak to, there's many different types of. There's the institutional investor, there's
Mm-hmm.
the hedge fund transactional investors, there's the retail investors.
Mm-hmm.
All of them are very smart people, but we speak
You speak a different language. Let's be honest.
Right. So I hate to use the word dumbing a presentation down. That's none of the people you deal with.
How about we just speak to the audience and leave it at that?
I speak to the audience, and and in ways that I think they can understand, and that's helped in graduating to a larger company.
Good.
And that is so the trike is in that community. When I left Iovance, everyone thought I was going to build another cell therapy company. Cell therapy has a real place, and there's been some high value attributed to it. For instance, on my own previous company, Iovance, has gotten up to $7 billion of market cap. But also, we had two platforms at the time, the TIL therapy, which is the core essence of what Iovance is. And then we also had an option for 1 year of a platform called CAR-T, chimeric antigen receptor technology, T cell therapy,
mm-hmm.
which I couldn't afford because I was a small bulletin board company. So after a year, I had to back out of the option. And Ari Beldegrand with Kite Pharma took it over, put it in Kite, and then sold it for $12 billion. So I'm not giving that stuff away anymore, by the way, audience. But it did well, and it's a cell therapy. And it actually was the motivation for me to really get the trike, because the trike is different. When everyone thought I was going to start another cell therapy company, I love cell therapy and I hate cell therapy. Cell therapy does work, all right? And it's for these stage 4 end of patients, nothing else is left. But cell therapy is not really a drug. It's a cell therapeutic regimen, which includes drug and tumor debulking and hospitalization and clean room and genetic engineering of T cells, and it goes on and on. It is the most expensive thing you could do on the planet Earth in biotech is cell therapy. It's $1 million to $2 million per patient. The cost on manufacturing, it has outside manufacturing, and it goes on and on and on. And it's also ergonomically, so I didn't like the economic model, even though we were really the first cell therapy company that really came in. And
so you wanted to move, as they say, to the bigger, better deal, or I think it was Michael Lewis, the new thing.
Two things, though: the bigger, better deal, yes, most certainly. but also when you look at it, I grew up a poor kid from the projects in Cleveland, Ohio. Not everybody's got insurance. So even insurance coverage for that type of ticket item is very difficult, but also the ergonomic problems with it, right? The physician administration of it is very difficult. The patient experience is sometimes horrendous. It's very, very painful. It's a lot of things the patient has to go through. Then you add that all up, the market it serves then is only like 4,000 or 5,000 patients a year. Millions of people need this type, need treatments. And like I said, not everybody's got insurance. So I knew that the economic model had to change. So I said to myself and my partner, Martin Schroeder, I said, look, if we can get what CAR T does, which is a cell therapy, but get it into the form of a small molecule drug, it's going to solve all of the economic model issues of it and other things. And that's what the trike is. The trike is the protein version of CAR T.
Okay.
By
So,
that,
so it was a strategy to really expand the addressable market.
it does. And what that means is a protein is so small. If a molecule was the size of the planet Earth, a protein would be the size of a satellite. So that means it's a real drug, and that solves a lot of economic issues right there in being able to have a small molecule drug. This is a small protein biologic. The other thing is, that it opens the arena for hundreds of thousands of patients instead of just 4,000 or 5,000 patients because of the economics, and the ergonomics of our superior.
And does it help collapse the cost of the treatment? You were saying it's $1 million to $2 million per ticket.
It does. By example, when our per patient cost in running our clinical trials at Iovance was $380,000 per patient. My per patient cost with the trike is $30,000 a patient, and I got 70% of that cover of the cost of the trial covered by insurance.
Wow.
That makes a huge difference. So the economics, that's exactly what I was speaking to, the economics. But forget about the economics. Forget about cell therapy versus NK cell therapy. It all boils down to one thing. And that is, I felt that the next wave of excitement after leaving Iovance was going to be targeted immunotherapy. But more specifically, I felt it was going to be NK cell therapy, NK cell technology.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is everybody's been working with T cells for quite a long time. We all everybody in the outside world kind of understands what a T cell is. And T cells perform a function. An NK cell is a natural killer cell. T cells and B cells they're two parts of your immune system. One is the adaptive side of your immune system, which creates B cells and T cells. The other is the innate side of your immune system, which creates NK cells. T cells are like soldiers. Your immune system sees them, and it sees a foreign invader, which kills, and says, hey, there's a foreign invader. We need to get rid of that guy. So it sends a bunch of T cells over there. They're like soldiers. They go out, they attack the cancer. And usually, a lot of times they win the battle. A lot of times they lose the battle because T cells, like soldiers in the field, can become distressed when overused. T cells can transition into a problem causing a cytokine storm. That's a poison in your body that kills healthy cells, not just cancer cells. NK cells are very different. They're like the generals in your immune system. They're extremely intelligent. They're very prolific, and they're the best cancer killing agent the human body has. And that's been known for a while. And so they go out and they're extremely prolific, but if you don't target an NK cell and use it properly, it kills everything. So it's the better killer, but it doesn't transition on its own into a cytokine. But it can also cause cytokine storm if it's not used properly, which leads me to the trike.
Okay.
Right? The trike is a NK cell technology. Dr. Jeffrey Miller, who's he is the world's #1 guy in NK cell technology. In our landscape right now, and this is for your fund managers out there, we're kind of like real estate. The comps in our world are NK cell engagers like Dragonfly, Innate Pharma, Affimed, and then there's the cell therapy players like NK cell therapies, like Fate Pharmaceuticals, which is worth about $10 billion market cap. And oh, by the way, that's Dr. Miller's original cell therapy technology. That's got that, but it's still a cell therapy and it's still super expensive and all those other issues with cell therapies. And then you've got engagers, like I said. So the market caps are anywhere from the 800 million to, 10 billion. And then we're now there. We just entered the arena on NASDAQ,
Right.
and we have about $150 million market cap. Because we were a month ago, we were a bulletin board company. Now I'm going to get into the differences and what the root of your question is and why someone should pay attention to us and listen to this guy named Tony Cataldo, because I'm going to have him listen to the data. Okay?
Let's do it.
Yes. In that arena that I talked about, where we're at about $6.70 some odd cents a share, and others are at almost $100 a share. In that arena, everybody's trying to do the same thing. Take an NK cell, all right, and have that NK cell kill a cancer cell, and then go on and kill another cancer cell, and et cetera, et cetera. There are billions of cancer cells and billions of NK cells. Now, that being said, they all, in some way, shape, or form, can accomplish that. They're all in different phases of their clinical trials, just like us. We're in a phase 2 clinical trial. I'll get into that momentarily. They all can do that, but they're all all of them, except for the trike. All of them can kill an NK cell, can kill a cancer cell, but an NK cell only lasts like 3 hours in your body, because it has a very short life cycle. So you're constantly having to increase NK cells and produce NK cells. All of them, except for the trike, go out and have to use outside means to do that. They use outside manufacturing. That's why it's so damn expensive, like cell therapy. They go out and they'll do they'll have to precondition a patient and condition an NK cell to go ahead and perform that function of killing a cancer cell through outside manufacturing, genetic engineering, using combination drugs like Rituxan, with your cell therapy. The trike does everything biologically in the body. It doesn't have to do that. Here's the other issue and what differentiates the trike. When those offerings, all of them are going out, they kill a cancer cell, and then that NK cell is exhausted and can't be used. Then another NK cell has to step up to the plate, so on and so forth. The trike does things differently. It kills an NK cell, but it's a serial killer. So it's not just one NK trike killing one cancer cell. That same NK, and this can be seen on our website in human data, the actual video of it actually doing this. It goes on, it kills that cancer cell, and then it goes on and it kills other cancer cells, and will continue to do that because of our secret sauce.
Is it programmed to kill a particular type of cancer cell, so it moves on from one to the other?
All of these are. In our first clinical trial, the platform part of our technology is called CD16 IL-15X. The X part for our first trial is CD33. CD33 positive, that's present in liquid tumors like leukemia and MD myelodysplastic syndrome. And they're always there. And what the trike does, it's target directed. But unlike the other technologies, which has an NK cell, and they're trying to target direct too, and killing a cancer cell, it causes the NK cells because in the middle is this thing called IL-15, interleukin 15. IL-15 is a known cytokine, but it has an amazing impact on NK cells. Your body has, yes.
What is that? Cytokine?
It's a cytokine. That means it is a poison, all right?
Okay.
It's dangerous. It's a thing called cytokine storm that causes people to die. So IL-15 can only be used at 2 micrograms per kilogram. And everybody tries to use IL-15 as a side product to enhance their product offering. But you can only use it at 2 micrograms per kilogram. Anything more than that, it becomes extremely dangerous because it's tough.
So I'm guessing the trike is not using that, and it's doing something different.
It's using IL-15, but it's embedded IL-15 in the middle of its construct. In the small protein biologic, IL-15 only gets used when it attaches to an NK cell. And when it attaches to an NK cell, instead of that NK cell only lasting 3 hours to kill cancer, it lasts 90 days now. And so not only is the trike serial killing, but it's keeping that serial killing NK cell doing it for 3 months instead of 3 hours, meaning you don't have to keep replenishing NK cells. When stage 4 patients come to all companies like us, in our trials, the FDA makes us use the end of line patients. They got 6 weeks to just a couple of months to live. They failed on everything. They're in the experimental drugs phase, and they're going to die. When they come to you, their immune systems have had the crap kicked out of it because of
I bet.
chemotherapy,
Mm-hmm.
cell therapies, CAR T, all of that. All of these technologies have, serious side effects. And so their ability to produce more NK cells is sorely limited, again, causing another problem. The trike resuscitates their NK cells, causes those NK cells not just to last instead of 3 hours for 3 months, but also proliferates those NK cells into the billions to fight cancer. And it does it all biologically in your body. We are the only company that can do that. We're the only company that can use IL-15 in that way, because at patient 9, and I'm going to get into the data now,
Mm-hmm.
at 100 micrograms per kilogram, we got IL-15 in there. Remember, I told you 2 micrograms per kilogram would be bad. We're at 100 micrograms per kilogram. We are killing cancer cells. We have shown 3 out of the last 5 patients, I'll get into that a little bit more specific, have received responses, complete responses, and objectives, meaning we have killed cancer. But what's more important is we have yet to have a side effect. In leukemia patients, and these type of patients, there's severe fevers or cardiac events, pulmonary issues. We've had no side effects, no toxicity, no CRS, cytokine release storm, none of that. Yet we're killing cancers.
And Tony, this is all because of your words, secret sauce or proprietary formulation that you have, which I assume is patented up the yin yang. Correct?
It is. I spend $1,000 an hour with DLA.
Right. What's the patent life for that? It expires in how many years?
The earliest the patent expires in is 2036 up through 2047.
Okay, and before we get to the data, just 2 questions. When we see companies that have a vast IP library, there's 2 ways that they can kind of go about making money, right? They can either make their own products and services, or they can turn around and license that IP, which is a very, in my opinion, very advantageous business model, because the margins are extremely, extremely high on that. And we've seen companies like Qualcomm, InterDigital, and a number of others do that for various technologies. Is your intention to pursue either one or both?
I have big pharma crawling all over me right now.
Okay.
The backstory on this is I waited to uplist to NASDAQ until I had data. Now I've got data from patient 1 through patient 9.
Right.
What happened was with the trike, because it's a first in class, first in human trial, this biology has never been done before. This is new to the planet Earth. And so the FDA on this platform technology was, because IL-15, they were concerned about it, because when you use it not in the way that we use it, because we keep it encapsulated and it only hits its target. And when people go on the website and they click on the video part of that trike actually killing, they actually see it in real time working. It's not CGI. I know I live in LA. It's the real deal.
It's not a Marvel. It's not a big Marvel movie.
No, it's not. But it's kind of like Pac-Man. When you look, see what I mean. But what happened was on December 5th, just before at the end of the year, there's a big conference called the ASH Conference, American Society of Hematologists. It's about 30,000 members strong, oncologists, hematologists, you name it. And every year, biotech floods to them to present their poster or their abstract, right? And then the ASH picks 5 of those to do an oral presentation. It's Gilead, Novartis, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
They picked us. We were a bulletin board company. It's never been done before.
Fantastic.
The data was kicking everybody's ass. All right.
Nice.
And what the data showed when we presented it, exactly what I told you, when we presented it at ASH, it showed up through patient 7 at the time
Mhm.
that we were showing no side effects, that we were killing the cancer, we were serial killing, there was no clipping or shedding, which everybody else says, meaning the NK cell could continue killing, and it was proliferating with no side effects in a leukemia patient, which is unheard of. And that's
So
at 50 micrograms at that time. We've done better. Hold that thought. There's more to that. When we submitted our IND to do we're in a phase 1, phase 2 trial right now.
right.
We're almost at the end of phase 1, getting ready to go into phase 2 this summer. Big event for us, big event for any biotech company. This ought to wake up your financial guys too, by the way. When we submitted our animal models, the FDA wants to see your animals get killed at the maximum tolerated dose. They want to know what level is going to start killing the animals, because they want to factor that into what's it going to do in humans. At 1,000 micrograms per kilogram, we couldn't kill any of the rabbits or mice, but we were killing all the cancer. And the FDA finally went, when's this thing going to top out? We're like, it works very different. It doesn't do that. So they went, okay, we're going to let you start your trial, but we're going to make the first 2 patients at 5 micrograms per kilogram. If there's no harm there, we'll let you go to 10.
So you're stepping it up along the way.
So now we're at 100 micrograms per kilogram, because at any point in time, the FDA would stop us if we were causing some serious problems. Obviously, that hasn't happened.
And in the financial news releases and stuff you guys put out, you've referenced 9 patients. So you've jumped from 5 micrograms to 100, as you just said, through the first 9 patients.
And the final 2, yes, that's true.
Okay.
Final 2 patients are at 200 micrograms per kilogram. Remember, I said we couldn't kill any of the animals.
That's right. Yes.
So the FDA now has stepped back and gone, okay, and not only is it not causing problems, but this is really safe. Like I said, in our community, in these kind of trials, there's always side effects. We're just not having them.
So what's next on that? Because you said you're in phase 1/2. What does it take to go to a full phase 2, phase 3, and all the way down?
Yeah, we're already approved for phase 2.
Okay.
But what's happened to us because of the way that data is showing, once we got to 25 micrograms per kilogram on patient 5, all right, patient 5 then showed all the way through patient 4, we were showing stable disease, which is in a phase 1 trial, you don't get efficacy, usually never. We're showing phase 2 results in phase 1, which is highly unusual. That's why ASH went, we want you to talk.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So that one, because of that, then I said, okay, now I'm going to upgrade to NASDAQ. And that's what caused that to happen. And we'll get into that at the end. All right. So because of that, so what's happened is once we hit 25 micrograms with patient 5, 3 out of the last patients, patient 5, patient 7, and patient 9, for some reason, the odd number ones, all had more than just stable disease. They all did the same things. What happens is in every one of our patients, even from patient at 5 micrograms, people whose NK cells were almost non-existent went back to normal and after the drug course.
And how many, can you just real quick, what is that course like?
Yeah, the course is, like I said, 2 patients at 5 micrograms per kilogram. The next 2 patients at 10.
Sorry. So are we, just for the audience, or are we ingesting something, so many days?
We're getting it's infused, right? It's kind of like dialysis.
Okay.
And so when we had no problems at the first 2 patients, we went to 10, still no side effects, but their NK cell levels all went back to normal, giving them energy that they hadn't had. People who came in a wheelchair were now walking or jogging or riding a stationary bike. That we knew something was happening, but we didn't expect to see anything at such a low dose, but we were. And once we got to 25 micrograms per kilogram, it got even better, because there's the way you measure this. You measure, when you bring a patient in, you measure 2 things: their NK cell levels, how many are out there, do they have any? If they have any, we can work with them. Everybody has NK cells, all right, or you can't, all right. So, and the other thing we're measuring what in the bone marrow thing called bone marrow blast. That's the amount of leukemia or MDS cancer cells you have in your bone marrow. That tells you everything. And these patients have 18% to 22%, 12% to 20. There's a lot of, that's why they're dying, and they only have a few months to live. When we got to patient 5, who had, remember I said all of their bone marrow blast levels didn't increase even in the earlier first 4 patients. When we got to patient 5, her bone marrow blasts went down from 18% to 12%. Now it's showing cancer killing, not just stable disease, still no side effects. When we got to patient 7 at 50 micrograms per kilogram, her levels went from a bone marrow blast, it was an MDS patient, which nothing works for MDS, went from 12% to 4.6%, killing 61.7% of the cancer. That's bizarre, and it's a great result. That's called a complete response or a remission. In a phase 1 study, you just never see that kind of data. That happened, and still no side effects, no toxicity, no cytokine release storm.
Right.
All right, then we got to patient 9, whose bone marrow blast level, leukemia level went down from 22% to 8%. That's 63.8% of the cancer was being killed. Still no toxicity. And now we're on patient 10 starting on Monday, and then we have 11 and 12, and in June, we're going to end up, July, we'll end up with our phase 2 trial starting for efficacy. But because we're performing so well, there's a likelihood that our phase 2 trial will turn into something much faster. I can't talk about it right now.
Right. So I just have to ask the question, Tony, and I don't mean to sound like a Debbie Downer or anything. It all sounds wonderful, absolutely wonderful. But what are some of the potential risks that you might face, or at least challenges or hurdles as you go forward over the next couple months?
Look, the challenges and hurdles are always within a clinic. Look, we deal with stage 4 patients that are going to die. The risk of ours is now, it's really been pretty much de-risked. The risk is now market sector related as opposed to company related. Is there another 9/11 coming out? Is Donald Trump going to come back in and seize control of the presidency? It's stuff that impacts a global stock market. That's where our risks are. Data is performing. If you look at the landscape, I'll go back to this, and you look at the companies, the 3 companies I mentioned, Dragonfly, Innate Pharma, and Affimed, all have big pharma partnerships right now. Mm-hmm. They are bispecific NK cell engagers. The Trike is a tri-specific, multi-tri-specific. They again have the same issues. And then there's the cell therapy side of NK, which is Nkarta. Nkarta has a $1.7 billion market cap. They treated 1 patient in November with no results, but their market cap is 10 times larger, 12 times larger than ours. Why? Because I was a bulletin board company a month ago.
Right. I understand. Well, you also did some other things though too, right? As we chatted before we started the program, you recently did an offering that helped you clean up the balance sheet quite a bit. There was coming, I guess, exiting 2020, again, early stage company, there was some concern about the amount of cash. And if I remember, the 10Q language was ongoing concern. But again, you've addressed that with the recent equity offering. And I believe I read that you had done about 24.6 million net proceeds, but you informed me that the green shoe was authorized and you walked away with more like 28, 29, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And eliminated all of the debt. So the balance. So I'll get to that in 1 minute. So just to finish off the data, right? So what the data is saying is I've got companies with billions of dollars of market cap not showing results that we have. And that is because of the things you're referencing right now. We were a bulletin board company.
Right.
So we were that tree if it fell in the forest and there were
nobody would know. Right.
And we had a balance sheet. The capital structure was ugly. And it was all because I had to start the company on debt. Like I did with Iovance, I transitioned from a bulletin board company to a NASDAQ company, and then it took off and caught fire.
Can I ask one quick question? Just after the offering, what's the rough percentage that insiders own?
Insiders own just under 20%.
Okay. And how, if I may ask, how much of that is you?
10%.
Okay.
And,
Excellent.
I don't, by the way, I don't pay myself a whole lot of salary. You can see that online.
Yeah.
I'm an equity guy,
That's, I mean, that's all in the filings. I mean, but that's great. That's great. I mean, it says you're a high conviction person.
I also don't like to put money in the aquariums for the office. Our money goes into the technology, I want my money
Excellent.
in education, all right?
No, that I actually had a couple questions for you on that. Having cleaned up the balance sheet and stuff, you're relatively flush with cash, but the most recent 10Q again did not show any revenue, right? So you're burning cash. When you look at that 28 million, based on what you know today, and we understand that other things can happen, progress can be had, deals can be inked, so on and so forth. How long do you think that 28, 29 million carries you?
2 years.
Okay.
Because remember I said early on, cell therapy is $300,000 to $500,000 per patient. I'm at $30,000 a
Right.
patient.
Right.
In our portfolio on our website, it the current clinical trial plus actually it just shows 2 solid tumors. There's now 4 solid tumor drugs. I've got 22 trikes, which will get back to your big pharma question in a moment. I can fund the company for 2 years. I don't need money. All right. I have an additional 28 million in the form of warrants that are cash warrants, not cashless, no bullshit. Sorry about that part. No BS type of secret things going on with the warrants. They're cash warrants, over 30%. Most of them will get exercised now. That's another 28 million. I don't need money. The best time to raise money in biotech is when you
don't need it.
I have bulge bracket banks coming now, but it's not unrealistic because of our data, not because of what Tony says. Our data is leading big pharma to our doorstep. There's a lot of things I can't talk about right now, but it's not unrealistic to hypothesize that we'll have a big pharma partnership. I have one.
And is that your preference? Is that your preference near term? A partnership, not necessarily a sale?
Well, I would do a part. I had one of them recently say, "Hey, would you consider selling the company?" And I went, "Yes and no. Yes, if you give me true value. No, because you're not going to. There's no market cap against me."
Yeah, well, but you correct me if I'm wrong. As you continue to go through these clinical trials, if the data proves out and continues what you've seen, in other words, replicates it, that would argue for an even better valuation, wouldn't it?
Yeah, what the data is showing now is the if is kind of not there. We're already showing efficacy and safety profiles and things that the trike does that nobody else can do. And so now it has to continue doing that. But we know because of the biology of the trike. And like I said, we have a lot of experience. I had one company, one big bank that eventually did invest in the NASDAQ uplisting deal say to me, when I made that, I said, well, look at Ncarto, they're at 1.7 billion, one patient, no results, and we're there. And he said, yeah, but they've got a lot of pedigree. And I looked at him, I'm like, not more than us. The number one person in NK cell technology is Dr. Jeff Miller. His NK cell therapy at Fate Pharmaceuticals is about 10 billion. And oh, by the way, I created a $7 billion company. Who's got that background in them? They went, oh, you're right. I said, the reason they're there is because they did an IPO and had Goldman Sachs behind them, and they've got institutions are now coming to us because of the data.
Well, it's the data, the uplisting, the fact that your stock is, above $5. So these are all, check all sorts of boxes, and there is the fact that, as we said before, that you cleaned up the balance sheet considerably.
Well, yes, that also. And now we got our first analyst coverage from Roth Capital at a $25 price target. We have several other analyst reports coming out. We're now no longer the bastard stepchild. I'm now on a level playing field where I can have the fist fight that I've been looking for.
So over the next couple months, what would you say are some of the milestones that you look forward to?
Well, certainly one of the biggest milestones was I uplisted to NASDAQ and cleaned up my balance sheet.
Right. Check.
Right. And that is 33 million shares fully diluted, no debt, 2 years of operating cash, and nothing, no surprise. I don't like surprises.
So looking forward, so people know that people new to the story, or existing investors that are monitoring the story, so they know that, things are tracking. There's obviously, as you said earlier in the summer, phase 2 begins. You said, I think, starting, either you have or you're about to start patient 10. So you'll continue to, chip away at that. What are some of the other milestones that folks can look forward to, say, over the next 6 to 9 months?
Right. Of course, the data, the start of phase 2. And if that phase 2 becomes a fast track phase 2, will be a lot of other things that will happen that I can't talk about.
Right.
Also, non-dilutive capital from big pharma partnerships. I will take a big pharma partnership, but I'll only partner out 1 or 2 of the trikes, because I don't want to diminish the value of we have 22 trikes. The platform is very valuable. I want to preserve the valuation of that platform as we increase our market cap valuation based on a milestone achievement and data. Then we've got 3 solid tumor trikes in the cooker. They're being manufactured as I speak. They'll be entering into clinical trials as well. A PDL1 trike, which is the trike, unlike CAR-T or other companies, like CAR-T only works in liquid tumors. That's only 20% of the cancer market. The trike works in liquid tumors, solid tumors, which is 80% of the cancer market, and infectious disease. And I will license out the infectious disease trikes, because I think we know oncology really well. I think, let the big boys take the infectious disease trikes out. One I can't talk about. The other one, we showed the trike's ability to kill the HIV virus in the reservoir because of its targeting ability. Nobody else could do that. So there's things happening there. Again, I can't speak about. I'm going to focus on our oncology assets. So we'll have other trike trials up and running. And these are all multi-billion-dollar markets. And I like building the company, based upon merit, right? And minus the BS. And that is, the data performs. Those markets are huge markets. The trike is an off-the-shelf technology, unlike the ones that are out there and in the NK world that are stage 4 only, because it's a small protein biologic and you can treat patients much earlier. And that is what the trike's data is starting to demonstrate as well. We're scaring the crap out of our
Sounds like it. It sounds like it.
Yeah.
And
So,
I
hey,
stayed under the radar screen until I had data and could say, all right, let's see what you got.
Well, it sounds like you've got the wind at your back, and there's going to be a lot more to the story. And Tony, I'm hoping that, in, a couple months, 4 or 5 months, 6 months, you'll be able to come back on and we can kind of get an update as to what's going on, because it sounds like the next 6 months could be very exciting for you.
Yeah, they are. I'm looking forward to it. It's nice to now, I don't need to financially engineer the company anymore. We have capital. We have a clean balance sheet. We have the opportunity is the fact that we have a low market cap at 150 million, but it isn't going to stay there. In fact, we've increased our market cap just in the last month. And with the type of, news flow that we have, you're going to see some real activity here.
Excellent. Excellent. Jay, before we get out of here, you got anything?
I do have a question from earlier. Tony, I hope you can see why I let Chris just run with this. He is excellent at breaking apart a company from the balance sheet to the income statement to the value proposition. But you had mentioned something earlier that I know the audience would question. And there's something when portfolio managers and financial advisors build portfolios called idiosyncratic risk. And you had mentioned that your company is basically going to do just as well as the sector does. And there's no company level risk, which that's always going to have a discerning eye. And a great way to massage that out of a portfolio is to put some of your competitors in there with you to diversify that out. Who are your top 3 competitors that advisors and portfolio managers should look at when analyzing your company?
Well, Fate Pharmaceuticals at a $10 billion market cap. That's Dr. Miller's technology. That's his cell therapy. His next generation technology is our trike. And Dr. Jeffrey Miller is our consulting chief medical officer. And so that's a really good one. Nkarta, an almost $2 billion market cap company that only has treated one patient. Fate Pharmaceutical, Affimed, Dragonfly, Innate Pharma, all NK engagers, but they're only bispecific. So we have, we're that new house in the very expensive neighborhood that people went, wait a minute, where'd that house come from? We're that guy.
Excellent.
And I say risk, there's limited risk. There's no such thing as no risk.
Right.
Yep. Excellent. Listen, we appreciate you coming on the Investment Spotlight series here. We'd love to have you on in the future. Like Chris said, it looks like you have a lot of things rolling out over the next 6 months, but we really enjoyed this conversation. I personally learned a ton.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Jay, and thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. And, we're available to do an update when you find time and you think it's necessary to do so.
Excellent.
All right. I'm just going to keep my head down and just work. You got to work it. You have to execute.
Tony, don't buy any aquariums.
No plan. No fish. All right.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Important information. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, and it should not be relied on as such. It should not be considered a solicitation to buy or an offer to sell a security, and you should consult your attorney or tax advisor. All information has been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but its accuracy is not guaranteed. There is no representation or warranty as to the current accuracy, reliability, or completeness of, nor liability for, decisions based on such information, and it should not be relied on as such. Pinger Systems, LLC, doing business as Resilient Advisor, was compensated for the production of this content.